Hello, good day to you, and you are welcome to Making Your World Habitable. My name is Oluwatoyin Abodurin. I'm a construction manager and a builder by training, and I'll be bringing to you the stages and steps that is involved, required by professionals in making your world habitable. First of all, we are going to be looking at the various professionals that are responsible in making your world habitable, and we'll be going through the list before enumerations. And the number one priority on my construction team list to make your world habitable is the town planner. And the town planners are going to be enumerated as we go on. The number two is the surveyor. We have several surveyors, but of course, this time around, I'm talking about the land surveyors. And the number three is the architect. Number four are the engineers. The engineers, according to my list, are being divided into three different segments. The first one is the civil engineer, which are in charge of structures. The second one are the mechanical engineer, which are in charge of ventilations, water supply and discharges within a facility. Then the third categories of engineers are the electrical engineers. Of course, they introduce power, to make sure the facilities is functional in terms of technological amenities. Then number five on my list of professionals is the quantity surveyors. We all know the importance of quantity surveyors, but it's still going to be enumerated as we go on the show. Then number six is the builder. It is important for us to know the role of the builder in the construction team. Then the number seven, which is the last on my list, is the real estate valuer. The real estate valuers also, they have a key point. They have a key role in the construction industry in order to make your world habitable. All these professionals are trained in order to give you an habitable space such that you don't need to worry about anything, because they've had the foreknowledge of all this before going into execution process. So as we go on, I will first of all want to go into the town planner as scheduled on our list. The town planner, first of all, we will have to kind of know the importance of town planners. In any planned city, town, country, it is important that a map out is being made, as in a drawing, a space is being made such that there will be orderliness. The place is going to be an habitable environment, a built-up environment, such that there won't be crisis or chaos as the case may be. So it is important for a city or a state or a country to have a master plan of how the settlement is going to be, so that things are going to be done in an orderly manner. So the town planner, they kind of they try to identify different kinds of settlements for different purposes, and also they kind of identify areas that are habitable for residential, areas that are habitable for commercial activities, areas that are habitable for industrial activities, such that there is going to be an organized traffic movement in that particular town or a city. And they also identify places that are climatic, that are of climatic hazard prone. Example, lowlands which are flood prone. And another example are places that are kind of exposed to wildlife, places that are exposed to wildfire. All those geographical informations, the town planner already has it, and they put it into consideration when making a design for their master plan. And it is important for us to respect whatever building regulations which the town planner has mapped out, so that emergency situations will be brought to minimal. And it is very important that we need them in the system so that we can have an habitable sphere. I will briefly go into each of these professionals, so as not to take much of our time. Just a brief introduction of them. There are much more to what we are going to their role, but for you to just, for a layman to just have the reason why, the reason there must be an inclusion of all these professional, or a consideration of all these professional whenever they are deciding to acquire or get an habitable space for whatever use or purpose. So that takes me to number 2, which is our surveyor. Of course, we talked about the land surveyor. The land surveyors are the ones that give specific allocations of the establishment of your site according to the master plan. That is why I try to kind of like itemize the list of professionals, because you can't do without one. As in, surveyors cannot do without the town planners. There must be a master plan of a particular city, of a particular country, before the surveyor can say you want to work or establish coordinates that is being allocated to anybody for either industrial, residential, or commercial purpose. And it is important that all these guidelines are respected for the public safety. So the role of the surveyor is to establish coordinates according to the purpose for which the land is supposed to be used for. Secondly, the role of the surveyor is to establish coordinates in terms of heights and levels, in terms of drainage works. They work hand in hand sometimes with the engineers whenever they are establishing road levels or drainage levels or navigation in their designs, especially on road works. They also establish coordinate points that kind of like give a definite map out of your property allocations, which can further be processed into data presentation for the ministry, and also from there obtain necessary documents from the governments, such as the CFO. And we all know all those documents, they are used for diverse purposes. Some for securities, some for loans, some for, so that is, as in, we cannot undermine the role of this surveyor in the construction industry. So that will take me to number 3, which is the architect. The architects are, we all know architects to be designers. We all know architects to be dreamers. We all know architects as in they are the brain behind every beautiful masterpiece structure you see outside. And the architects are the first point of contact when it comes to the establishment of a facility, as I'm talking about the design team now, because it is whatever the architect has in mind that every other professionals in the design team are going to help add strength and functionality into it. So the architect comes up with a design either from his innovation or by brief being given to him or her by the client. So it is important that the architect makes a design to suit the function at which you want to use the facility for. Example, it could be a stadium. Example, it could be a residential home. Another example, it could be a school, and it can also be a factory. So all these briefs gives an architect an innovation on how best to give you a unique, desirable facilities. So, for example, if we are to consider a stadium, the architect has the basic functional requirements a stadium should possess. Example, we know that the stadium should have seats of big capacities to a tune of maybe above 20,000 and above, depending on the location of the stadium. The stadium should have, tracks, it should have fields, it should have a gym, pool, depending on the kind and the section of sports that the architect is being briefed to make a design about. Another example is to a residential home. If an architect is giving a design, so it's rather if he's giving a brief on residential homes by a footballer, the architect knows um, the occupation of the client, which is the footballer, and the occupation will influence all the things that he's going to put into consideration in his design so that the facility can efficiently serve the purpose for which it's been established. We all know a footballer would like to have several living rooms for privacy's sake. He will have a big bedroom. He's going to definitely have a gym. May definitely have a pool. May definitely have a garden, for recreation, relaxation, and all those things. So all these things are going to be embedded in the design by the architect. And that brings us to the next professional, which is the engineer. After the architect has done all his or her design on paper, that is paper designed work, beautiful on paper, does not mean it is going to be functional or achievable at all costs. So the design is being transferred to the engineers who are going to add strength, life into that dream in order to bring it to reality. Then the first we'll be looking at is the civil engineer. The civil engineer, the structural engineer section of the civil engineer, they are going to add the reinforcement properties, check out the stabilities, check out the location of where the facility is supposed to be sited, whether the ground is of good bearing capacity or it is of poor bearing capacity. All these facts brings about what design they are going to make for such facility in order for it to be sustainable. So we can see that we need an engineer in order to make a proper design for your building to be sustainable, except if you just want something that you just put up that everybody will evidently see and admire, and the following day it collapse, just like we have so many beautiful death traps all around. The next phase is the mechanical aspect of the civil engineers, of the engineers. The mechanical aspect, it goes into two different parts. It's either introduction of ventilation, we have AC and pipings and mechanical works like that, which introduce the mechanical airflow into a building, and aeration properties to be attached to the building such that it can be habitable, it can be environmentally friendly. And the other parts of the mechanical engineer is the supply of potable drinking water into the building such that it can be easily accessed where it is needed, just like your bathrooms, your kitchen, your laundry. They know how to safely introduce water supply into those places such that it is not going to impair on the structural stability of your facility. The next is this second part of the mechanical engineer, is the discharge, water discharge. Most times the water discharges are foul water and so of your bathrooms, of your sink, and every other waste. And also we also have solid waste management also, which comes from your WC, and they know how to properly channel it so that it will be safely disposed without public epidemic. So you can see why it is important for you to engage engineers in your building, because they are the ones to ensure that you have a safe public health. Then the third section of the engineering section, which we talked about, is the electrical engineer. The electrical engineer, they introduce power supply into the building safely such that it doesn't have surges, it doesn't have bridges, it doesn't have shock. As in, they are best in electrification of a building because they must have been briefed on the facilities you want to use the facilities for. If it is industrial, they know the kind of wires, cables to use. Cables are not just cables. Cables comes in different sizes and their specifications. We have different circuits also that will also enhance the factory to work at its efficiency, maximum efficiency, such that you don't need to start changing fuses or start changing the factory's equipment due to surges, or you don't need to start working with fear of touching the wall close to you. So the electrical engineers are to safely introduce the lightning and power properties into your building so that it can effect the modern technology which you desire. And that will be taking us to the next phase of our professional. And the next phase of our professional is the quantities of your. After all the design have been made by the architect, by the structural engineer, by the civil engineer, electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, as in after all their design has been translated into drawings and specification, it is important to count your cost before you start a project. Why? That is because you wouldn't want to start what you will not finish. And that is the order of the day for so many projects, because they did not envisage the cost from the beginning of their planning. So the quantities of your is there for you to quantify the scope of work, the cost, the valid cost for that periodic time which you want to execute the project. Why? Because they are familiar with the pricing of building materials, they are familiar with the specification of materials, they are familiar with the methodology and process involved in executing different stages of construction. So it is important for you to engage the quantities of your in order for you to have a valid, adequate costing before you embark on any of your building projects. It is very, very important. So that's a brief on the quantities of your. But now we'll be going to the builder. Who is the builder? The builder is a person that is grounded in all these technological designs and execution. he has a foreknowledge of how to make a design. He, as in, he understands every line that an architect draws because it is engineering. Also, the builder also understands the lines of the design of the engineers, civil engineers, mechanical engineers, the electrical engineers. So he has the foreknowledge of these two professionals, including the costing. He has a likable cost of materials and he's been through the test called strength of materials and their properties and how it works hand in hand together. So a builder also has the knowledge of uh, geographic locations of how it of how habitable locations are with respect to the information given to them by the first professional we enumerated, which was the town planner. So it is important to engage a builder. Why? Because the builder checks out the workability and the buildability of your design, the possibility of the execution ever before it goes to site. So from the design table, the builder reconciles the design of the architects, the engineers, and also the costing of the quantities of your. He reconciles all the designs and check out the flaws in each of those designs, whether they are workable. Because we've had some instances whereby some people will kind of like steal designs and not known to them, probably because of half payments, or they are trying to dubious way of getting away with the professional's fee. Professionals sometimes give them half informations on the drawings which they've gotten, and with the plan of executing such designs, it is the builder that will kind of like see that these informations are not what they are not complete. And we've seen cases whereby people will bring somebody else's roof design to cover up for their own building design, which most times does not correlate. It is just like me, a man putting on a gele, and and a gele is a Yoruba headgear. We all know that the headgear, which is gele, is meant for women. You cannot imagine it to be placed on a man. It doesn't fit. There's in anybody that looks at a man that ties gele will have a second thought that there's something definitely wrong with that person. Probably the person is not normal. So in the same view, if we've seen cases whereby designs are faulty such that the structural drawing does not correlate with the architectural drawing. So it is important for you to engage a builder such that from the inception, you would have foreseen any likable challenges that may occur in the slightest future during the execution, and to make a proper correction before money is being expended. Now, that's just brief on the builder. There is much more to the builder than this, but for time's sake, we want to go to the last one, which is the estate valuer. The estate valuer too is very much important in the construction industry, being that they are the one that make the pricing of our facilities. They make it as a form of security. They help in mortgaging, marketing your facility after it is being built. They kind of like establish pricing for different facility according to their locations. and they help in sourcing. They help in sourcing right professionals in order to do your building projects. It is not for them to do the execution, as previously we have described the roles of the previous professionals, but they have the good outsourcing, marketing skills, entrepreneurship strategy in bringing all these professionals together in order to give you the habitable home that you desire. So with these few points of mine, I would like to make sure that you get a complete grasp of why it is important for you to engage professionals in your building projects. And it is evident in our society where we have incessant building collapse due to flooding, due to fire outbreaks ranging from electric faults, also due to poor materials, due to poor workmanship, and so on and so forth. But with the engagement and enrollment of these professionals that has been earlier mentioned, you will find it easier and you find it stress-free, as a worry-free, in executing your building projects in a safe and sustainable manner. I hope with these few analysis you've been able to get the core reason why it is important to engage professionals in your projects. Thank you for watching. Please share if you find the information that we have discussed there informative, and thanks for your support. Bye for now.